Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. My name is Manny, and I'm here with,
Gabe Hicks. Nice to meet you.
and today we're going to talk about Mwangi Expanse, or is it Mwangi Expanse? I'm going to
Mwangi.
Mwangi.
Mhm.
And I'm so happy to talk to you because for this book, you wrote Blood Cove,
Yep.
as well as the two gods that are in this book.
Yes. Angazan and Wakina.
Yes. But before we get to that, I just want to talk a bit about Blood Cove. But I love the settings in this book. Every one of them is fantastic. I've loved the things that D&D and other publications have put out.
Mhm.
But this book is really special to me. This is such a great book. The settings, the options of what you can play. Oh
Yes.
man, it's such a great book. I've been waiting for something like this for a long time.
It gave us such a really fun look at what like more African inspired stories can be inside of a fantasy universe. And I feel like it really enforced the idea that like this is fun. There is so much interesting things you can do in taking into it. And you can do it in respectful ways that everyone can enjoy and it's still amazing.
Yes, and it's written by a diverse
Yep.
cast of writers. I mean, I as much as I love some of the old stuff like Al Qadim and things like that, when you read them, you could tell that there's something missing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel right. It was like
Yeah.
someone watched something on the TV or in the movie theater and then wrote their variation of it. It
That's
just
it.
didn't
Yeah.
feel right.
Yeah. It's
Um,
it's different in like experiencing something and or like having stories told firsthand of other people's experiences versus like I watched a special about it and now I'm writing about it because I know everything about it after watching that Discovery Channel episode.
so let's talk about Blood Cove. So how would you describe it?
Blood Cove to me was the sanctuary of sailors, whether brave and bold or bickery and brash. And it was a place of it's a place of sharing stories that are sometimes good, powerful, friendly stories, or like stories of pirates. And it felt like a very like morally gray place in a realistic sense, as weird as that sounds, because it's like Blood Cove is a place where you could have bloodthirsty pirates who have taken down dozens of ships for fun, or you have the person who works as a sailor and a trader, and Blood Cove is a place that they call home because they have a sanctuary there.
I think the reason why I like this section a lot because it reminds me of two things. One, historically, it reminds me of Port Royal.
Yes.
Um, and I sometimes I wonder what would have happened if that earthquake never happened. That what if that city would have kept thriving? Um, but
Yeah.
also I think besides the fact that it's a great pirate setting, it's also a very good setting that I think like if you want to have a character from a different location outside of the expanse, you can bring him
Mm-hmm.
in through that. Was
Yep.
that was that what you were thinking when you wrote this?
That was a big hope because when you come to a new place, especially in like settings or something, the question is what is a reason for someone to fit in on this place? And sometimes like especially I've had moments where I join into a setting and I'm like, I just want to get to this place. I don't have a big tie to my character yet. And when you have a cove that can be full of pirates, sailors, merchants, traders, anything, or even just ferrying people back and forth, someone could literally just be on this boat because they wanted to come somewhere new, and that gives them an introduction to Blood Cove. They don't have to be going to any of these inside cities because they're seeking something out. They could just be on a ship that came here. Now they could have been redirected, they could have been kidnapped, they could have been rescued, and they came to Blood Cove. But it could be anyone's introduction to this place because there's so many ways to get there.
There's a lot of parts to Blood Cult. There's a lot of what feels like adventure seeds.
Yes.
What would say some of your favorite parts of it that you wrote?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I even pulled up notes about this. One of the things that I loved was talking about the free captains because the free captains are such a diverse group. They are like part of the ruling class, and some of them, like I even talked about, like the morally gray area. Some of them have their own codes, and their codes might be kinder to some than they are to others. And the free captains, besides their allegiance to Blood Cove, they pretty much do what they want, which means there is like any way you could introduce someone to it. A free captain could come across someone in the water and attack them or free them or help them or rescue them. And then they have this investment with this person. Now you've introduced them to this member of this ruling class of this city. How involved are they getting? Are other people mad about that? Because the thing, the free captains, they might coincide together. That doesn't mean they like each other and they'll compete against each other. It gave me a chance to be like, here's kind of politics, but also they will just punch each other in the face and it's acceptable here. And I love when people I love when people see things like that and decide, I want to be involved in that, but I'm going to decide how I want to be involved in that. They don't have to follow a specific like logic or order to it. They meet this person who's in charge and then they decide, you know what? I want to take their spot. And like the way it's written, it doesn't mean they can't. They actively could. Another one was a lot of the shops. I got to write a lot of the shops and talk about like the excitement or the culture or like the sensations and what the vibes were in that place. And there was the Herbitarium. So there is Palus and had the Herbitarium. So it's like the study of snakes and such. And I love snakes. I love snakes. They are terrifying. There are so many different kinds, whether they are venomous or non. And that character, when you like read into that story and look into a bit and look into their study, it's like this person has something for whatever party meets them, whether it's capturing something, whether it's collecting venom, whether it's magic. This person is going to have something for this group, and it's just up to like the storyteller and the GM to decide what that is. Is one of my favorite characters that is in this.
So let's talk a little bit about the description of the setting of this place. So Blood Cove is called that not just because it's a cool name. The waters are red. Also the roots and trees are
the mangrove trees. Okay, so that was another one of the coolest things. So if you don't know, Blood Cove has hundreds of mangrove trees that are growing throughout the city, around and above, with massive roots, which is part of what like the city is built into, founded on. Like these mangrove roots are solid, so you can build on them, you can build around them, you can use them as part of the foundation. And the other like so cool thing to me is that by leaning into that, the city, if someone wanted to make it so, the city could be hidden unless someone knows to look for it. Because otherwise you just see this sea of trees, no pun intended, and you might just go directly past it. They provide a bit of defense. If you're firing cannons into an array where there are like hundreds and hundreds of trees, chances are there's going to be some cover. But for the people shooting out of the trees, they have a bit of extra safety and they know where to aim. And then the other thing is, and I didn't talk about it too much because I wanted to leave it open, but trees obviously grow up. So what is in those trees above the city of Blood Cove? Or who?
We'll leave some mystery there.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to game masters when it comes to using the setting for the first time for, let's say, for level 1 characters? Is there maybe a certain adventure seed you would use particularly, or maybe a certain group, or maybe that very interesting inn that's described in there?
So I would especially say when you're trying to introduce your party to this place, there are a bunch of shops and locations, you'll know which inn it is, and introduce your players to these locations, even just guiding them there. Like let them see a notice for the free trade square, or let them see a notice for the trading house, let them see a notice for the Witchlight Inn, and just lead them there, give them a description, and then see what they do. Because I have zero doubt that when you start describing even just what's written in this book, if you start describing the figures or the characters or the colorful individuals inside of these shops and locations, they're going to latch onto one of those people. They're going to latch onto one of those ideas, or they're going to start asking questions. Why does this look like this? Why does it have this scent in the air? Why is this the main thing that they're cooking in the kitchen? And when you give them those seeds, they'll plant them themselves. They will plant them themselves, and they will go into mangrove trees of their own inside of this ridiculous blood red city.
Speaking of cooking, I couldn't help to notice that toward the end, there's a recipe.
Yes, there is Blood Cove barbecue, which is literally made of all like the recipe is entirely something that you could like get in reality. It's not like stuff that is just Pathfinder specific, like herbs, spices, and meats. Like you could actually make Blood Cove barbecue, and it is delicious. That is not even like a personal bias. Like with dark brown sugar was a part of the recipe for like seasoning the meat, and I'm like I felt so seen and acknowledged when it was in there. Because it's like you want to add when you have a place, I think in my opinion, I don't feel like I get enough of like, okay, but what is the food like? Like that is a question that I always ask when I'm writing something, because the food is going to be affected by what the region is like. If you're in a tropical place, chances are fish is going to be a big thing. And if fish isn't a big thing, maybe that's a story point. Is fish not a big thing because there's something wrong with the water? Is it plagued? Is it infected? And you can, it's cheesy, but you can tell a story through why a place has the food that it does.
Mm. Trying to fight urge to write notes down.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, excellent. So before we talk about the gods that you worked on, is there anything about the city that you want to share with our viewers? Anything I haven't asked?
There a lot of possibilities or interactions or even just like descriptions. I gave details on stuff that I really wanted people to lean into and really wanted people to explore. And if something feels like it's open-ended, that's on purpose. I want you to create what that result is or how it resolves. I wanted to give you story points that you could lean into and then explore. And then after you finish that story point, I want you to write your own story. Because like I didn't write what was going to happen to Blood Cove next. I didn't write how Blood Cove had to proceed. I didn't write which faction inside of Blood Cove was going to take over. I wrote about what they were doing in this moment. And I want you to define what happens next, because that's one of the most fun things to me. Like my job as a storyteller and creator is to give you story paths and options that you can follow, and then hope that you enjoy making an ending that's fitting for you.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with Gabe Hicks, and we talk about 2 deities that he wrote about for the Mwangi Expanse, the Ravenous King and the God King. Stay tuned.